You don't get value because of your intelligence, your athletic ability, your personality, your humor, your good looks. That's not the place that man has value. You're not more valuable, more important to God because you're funny or good looking or fast or any of these other characteristics. You are inherently valuable. Any person listening right now, you are inherently valuable because God has placed in you His image. God says you have value. Hey, Castleview, good to see you again, and thank you for joining us again on the Castleview Baptist Church podcast. This is January 2026, and January is Sanctity of Life Month. Matter of fact, we have over the past years sometimes had a very special sermon about this on the Sanctity of Life Sunday. And instead of doing that this year, I thought we'd stop for just a few moments and talk about this really important issue in our country's history. Of course, we know that just about a year ago or so that Roe versus Wade was overturned. We thought that maybe that would help quite a bit. And what has actually happened is a lot of the abortions have gone underground. You can get pills online. You can order them from different places. And so I want to talk about this for a moment because I want to equip Christians to be able to answer some of these basic questions. And honestly, that's where it gets difficult at times. I think all of us as believers, at least the majority of us would say that we believe that human life is in the image of God. It's valuable, it's important, and God gives in us intrinsic value so that therefore we're life. We're pro-life. But some of us might not know how to articulate why we're pro-life. And so I want to talk about that for just a moment here today. I heard a couple days ago about a situation in Kentucky, a woman, Melinda Spencer, just over a week ago, 35 years of age from Campton, Kentucky. She took abortion medication on December 26, just over a week ago. She delivered a developed male infant the very next day, almost all the way to term, December 27th, and she buried the remains. That baby passed. She buried the remains. She took some wrapping paper and she put him in a light bulb box and put him into the ground. Police found out where this body was after she'd confessed it. And the shocking thing about this is so many people came out and defended her right as human rights. Well, this is her choice to take a baby fully developed and actually take the life of this baby and put it into the ground. Several years ago, we started hearing about this hashtag that was becoming popular called Shout Your Abortion. And Jamila Jamil is an actress, and she boasted, and she used that hashtag. She said, "So grateful for my abortion." And there have been many women that have said these kind of things, that their life is better because of their abortion. If they had to do it all over again, they would get another abortion. And so the irony of this Shout Your Abortion is that some of these individuals, like Jamila Jamil, they actually will get very upset, and they're very much part of the cancel culture. In other words, there's a lot of words that we would use that we would say, well, you're not supposed to use these words. Words like retarded or lame, words like queer. There's a number of things that people would say, well, if you use that phrase, if you use that word, you're going to be canceled because of the word that you use. The same people that get upset over using the word lame because it's ableist, as this actress did, are people that are championing the abortion industry. And it just shocks me to think about that, to say, well, we can take a life of somebody, but we can't say something negative about somebody. Now, I want you to hear me when I say this. I'm not a proponent of using those kind of words. I think words like retarded, I think words like some of these derogatory phrases that we might use, I'm not championing that. I don't think that's the way that believers ought to be behaving. But to take a strong stance and to cancel somebody because of using language when we're actually taking the life of these unborn babies just doesn't make sense in my mind. It just doesn't compute. It's bizarre. It's crazy. It's irony at its fullest. So I want to give you three things to think about as we talk about this area of pro-life versus pro-choice. And here's the first thought that I want to give you. Every human life bears God's image. When you take the life of an infant, a preborn child, or maybe even a child that's just been born, you are desecrating the image of God. Now, I want you to think about this. The Bible says that man and woman were created in the image of God. Now, this is important. If you hated God, what would you desire to do the most? You would want to eliminate the image of God. Anything that reminded you of God, you'd want to eliminate. That's Satan's highest desire. His pride. I will ascend. I will be like God. Anytime he sees a human, it reminds him of an authority that is above him. It reminds him of the image of God. He sees it and it reminds him of God. Therefore, he wants to eliminate it and annihilate it. It would be like someone in your life that you've got a problem with and you're struggling with forgiving that person. Perhaps that person hurt you. They slandered you. They said something about you. Whenever you hear somebody say something positive about that person, you want to deny that positive comment. You want to slander that person. You want someone else to think the same way about that person as you think. You don't want them to see them in a positive light. You want them to be seen in a negative light. This is the same thing with Satan. When he sees man and woman created, loved by God, honored and taken care of by God, cherished by God, it infuriates him. And therefore, he wants to annihilate the very existence and the very image of God from the face of the earth. I want you to know that. It's very important that what Satan is trying to do is he's trying to eliminate the image of God in its entirety. And every human life bears God's image. By the way, that's where you get value. You don't get value because of your intelligence, your athletic ability, your personality, your humor, your good looks. That's not the place that man has value. You're not more valuable, more important to God because you're funny or good looking or fast or any of these other characteristics. You are inherently valuable. Any person listening right now, you are inherently valuable because God has placed in you his image. God says you have value. So the first thing we see today is we are pro-life because every human life bears God's image. By the way, Psalm 139 tells us that when God created us, we were created fearfully and wonderfully made. Two things that means. The word fearfully here, it gives us the idea of a reverent awe. In other words, when God created you, he created you in such a way that it brings awe to our minds, that the way that we think, the way that we feel, the senses we have, the emotions we have, the thought processes, all of the things about the human body that God created, it strikes us with incredible awe. There's a reverence. It's amazing what God did. But there's another word here, and it's the word wonderfully. And the word wonderfully here tells us that we are not just marvelous, but also distinct. God created every single life in a distinct way. We see that in Jeremiah chapter 1, when God says, even in the womb, that Jeremiah was created for a distinct purpose. He was created to complete the task and the will of God that God had given him. And I want you to know that every single person has been given, because of the nature of God, because the way he created us in a wonderful manner, he's given every single person a distinct design. He's given all of us a purpose. Now, some people would look at individuals and say, well, what about that person's purpose? They struggle with this disease, or they have that disability. What about their purpose? God can use every person. God takes pleasure in every individual. And when he looks at somebody, even somebody with some kind of disability, he would look at that individual and say that person was made with a specific purpose. They are image bearers of God. Secondly, I want you to see this. Life does begin at first breath. Now, when I say that, you say, okay, wait. I thought life begins at conception. I thought that's what we believed. Yes, life begins at first breath, God's breath. God was the one that breathed into man and made us a living soul. Science and the Bible agree. And by the way, years ago, science did not agree with this. Most of the time, science would have backed up, well, when the infant, when the baby, when the born takes the first breath, that's when life begins. But more and more commonly, what we're actually reading now is we're finding that science is backing up this fact that when the moment of conception takes place, that is when life begins. And I want you to consider this. When the court made the decision in 1973 regarding Roe versus Wade, they said in that moment, they said, we are not able to make a conclusion about when life begins. And here's what they said. If science and theologians and people that have studied this out much more than we have cannot come to a conclusion, then we also cannot come to a conclusion on the matter. Here's my question. If some science believes that life begins when a baby's born, but others believe that it begins at conception, if the Bible teaches that life begins at conception, if there's any doubt, if there's any question, shouldn't life always be given the benefit of the doubt? In other words, if there are, even though there are fewer and fewer scientists that believe that it doesn't happen until actual birth, even if there are some out there believe that, if there's a question about this, shouldn't we always give life the benefit of the doubt? I've used this illustration before. It'd be like going up into the mountains and elk hunting. And you've done all the work and the preparation. You've got the license. You've bought the equipment. You have your rifle, and you're up there waiting. And you look across, and maybe 300-400 yards across through your binoculars. You look down and you see what you believe is an elk. You take your rifle, you get ready to fire, and you've got a friend with you, and all of a sudden your friend says, wait a minute, hold on, I'm not sure that's an elk. Matter of fact, it might be. As a matter of fact, I'm 90% sure that it is, but there's just a small percentage. It almost looks like it could possibly be a little boy in a brown jacket. Now, if your friend said to you, I'm 90% sure, I agree with you, 90% sure that it probably is an elk, but there's just a small chance that it's a little boy. I think every one of us would say there's no way in good conscience. Ethics would teach us that we cannot take that shot. Why? Because life should always be given the benefit of the doubt. If you're on the fence right now with this whole debate saying, well, maybe it's at birth, maybe it's at conception, then I think the moral responsible thing to do in our decision-making would to say, well, if we're not sure, life should always be given the benefit of the doubt. And I want to give you one more, and we're going to be finished here this morning. The womb is holy ground, not private property. The womb, that place of nurture for a preborn baby, it is holy ground. God is doing something. God is weaving something. He's creating this little baby for a purpose, wonderfully and fearfully. It's not the private property of a woman. And I understand what the argument is, and we hear it all the time. We hear it shouted at marches. They'll say things like, my body, my choice. But I want you to consider something for just a moment. The infant inside that womb has a completely different DNA than that mother. Oftentimes, half the time, that infant inside that womb has a different gender than the mother, has a different God-ordained purpose than the mother. I understand that that is the womb and that is the incubator. That's the place that God is developing this infant, but it is not the property, the private property of a woman. My body, my choice does not roll over into another body and us making a choice for that other human being inside of us. It's not the woman's right to make a choice for that individual inside of the womb. Here's what I would argue. Many of us live in what we know now as HOAs or homeowners associations. Every regular civilized society regularly limits choices. Okay, HOA. I can't just go into my neighborhood and paint my house, even though I bought it. I can't paint my house whatever color I want to paint it. I've got to go get authority and approval from the HOA. Why? They don't want me to do something that's going to hurt the property values of the people around me. I can't park a big broken down camper out in front of my house without them coming and telling me to move it. I can't have broken down vehicles in my front lawn without them telling me to come and move it. Why? Because it's going to hurt. Even though I have freedom to do what I want to do, now I'm infringing on the freedoms of those around me. I remember in the 80s growing up that you'd go to restaurants all the time and the first question they'd ask you is smoking or non-smoking? And the reason they did is, hey, you've got a right to smoke, but you don't have a right to bother these other individuals that don't want to. You can't infringe on other people's rights. Okay, when it comes to my body, my choice, an individual is infringing on the rights, the freedoms, the ability to live. They're making a choice for an entity that is not themselves. So really three things today that I think about. First of all, we've all been created in the image of God. Satan wants to fight that. He wants to eliminate that, but we've all been fearfully and wonderfully created. Life begins, number two, at first breath, but not our breath, God's breath. He breathed into us and made us a living soul. And finally, number three, it's not private property, that womb space, it's holy ground. God's doing a work in that space, and we need to protect that space at all costs. Hey, church, this is an area that seems to us sometimes so cut and dry, but sometimes you don't know why. I'd encourage you to just take a few of these thoughts, take some of these Bible verses, Jeremiah 1:5 and the Psalm 139, and do your own study and begin to look and to see, okay, God, what do you believe about life? What did you say about life? What did you teach us about life? And I'm hearing these arguments and I'm hearing these things said. What is your perspective? How can I shape my worldview on this? And how can I articulate what I believe in this area? Hey, it's Sanctity of Life Month. I pray that all of us would do our part to pray for preborn children. Thankful for organizations like Chelsea Minnick and Daniel with the Castle Rock Health Women's Health Clinic and other organizations that are fighting for life. Let's pray that God would allow us to see lives spared this year because He has a purpose and a plan for each and every one of them. Hey, thank you for watching today, the Castle View Baptist Church podcast. I hope that was helpful and encouraging. And if it was, feel free to like it, share it, give it to someone you think would be encouraged by it. And we will see you next week on the Castle View Baptist Church podcast.